It's the Blairing Out with Eric Blair show tonight at the Newport Beach Film Festival's 20th anniversary after party at Fashion Island with the legendary former Generation X guitarist Bob Derwood Andrews. How you doing tonight, sir?
Very good, thank you.
So to let people know, we're here at the 20th anniversary of the Newport Beach Film Festival. We're actually at Fashion Island, which is the last place you thought you'd ever end up.
Yeah, right.
How did this come together?
A guy called Sean emailed me a couple of weeks ago and asked if I would like to join them on stage. And I was like, what? You know, that's crazy. And I thought about it and I thought, yeah, why not? And like I say, I haven't played Dance With Myself or 100 Punks, which we're playing tonight, for 40 years. So I had to do a couple of days of trying to play it like a 17-year-old. And the people here have just been so fantastic, so nice and genuine, you know, because they're all musicians as well. And yourself, you know, it's a real pleasure to be here. And I'm a lucky man that anyone wants me here at all, you know.
Yeah, in the words of Greg Lake, you're a lucky man.
Yeah.
You know Greg Lake?
Yeah, right, yeah. I am a lucky man, yeah. Definitely. You're very good, man. Very good.
Thanks. The guys that you're playing with, Frank, the Agnew brothers, Jack Grisham, all of these guys are unpretentious. You don't find a lot of that in music anymore.
Exactly, yeah.
Tell me about the Bromley contingent.
I can't. I don't know anything about them.
You don't remember it?
I wasn't in Bromley, so I don't remember.
But Billy Idol was. You guys weren't a part of that?
No. I guess that was in 76 in the summer, or I wasn't a part of that. I was a hippie with hair down here, working for Princess Margaret.
Really?
Yeah. I was mowing her lawn, man.
Are you serious?
Yes,
you
I
worked
am.
for the elite?
Yes. At the age of 16, I signed the Official Secrets Act and went and mowed her lawn. Yes, sir.
How did they trust you to do that?
I applied for a job, and my thing was, in the interview, I said, I love growing tomatoes, and I got the job. I've bluffed my way through everything, you know. I do love growing tomatoes, but seriously, yeah.
So what did you learn about life from working for Margaret?
Do a good job, first of all. Don't rest on your laurels, and keep a straight line, mowing the lawn.
So where did you go from there?
Straight into a punk band, Generation X.
Okay.
Yeah.
What year did you join Generation X?
1976. And it was December 4th. I had my first gig as a young guitarist for my own band, and Billy came along as part of the punk rock scene. They thought we were punk rock, and we weren't. And in fact, we had 3 songs which we played 3 times each, and 2 of them were Johnny Be Good. You know, we didn't know what we were doing. It was just fun. But he came up to me afterwards, and I thought he was going to, you know, because there was a lot of that going on. And he said, do you want to come to an audition? Actually, do you want to come to an audition? And so I did. And he said, do you want to join our band? And I said, actually, I went home and asked my mum. I said, should I do this? She went, yeah, why not? So I did, and I was there for 3 years.
Some of the highlights of your time in Generation X, the early years.
The early years were great, because we were all equal, and we all wanted the same thing, which was to play rock and roll as fast as possible and as meaningful as possible. And that lasted for 9 months or so, and then it started to get into seriousness and record contracts and management. That's where everyone kind of dispersed and became something that we kind of hated to start with, and it grew into this thing that we all became something we hated, I believe. And I left after 3 years because it wasn't what I wanted to do anymore, you know.
So were there any, did you enjoy the Chrysalis years at all?
Oh yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, we weren't walking around like miserable. It was fun, yeah, it was great. But eventually it became a chore. And I, to be honest, if I saw, this is back then, I'd see Billy walking down the road and I'd run into a store and I thought, what am I doing? I'm in the same band as this guy, but I just didn't like hanging out with those guys anymore. It was not how we started. It wasn't true to me.
Well, I mean, what kind of differences? How did you see people changing?
They wanted to be rock stars, and I didn't particularly want to be a rock star. I wanted to be a guitarist and make great music, but that seemed to be not the end result. You know, that didn't seem to be important. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm not saying I'm great either, but it just became, we didn't want to hang out anymore, you know? No one wanted to share anything anymore. So I left, yeah.
What do you remember about working with Ian Hunter on the Valley of the Dolls album?
To be honest, not much, because that was in the thick of the pretense of everything and the bullshit. And musically it was fun. And of course, being the guitarist, I had the most work to do. You know, it was like, okay, it's the acoustic track now. Okay, it's the double track now. Okay, it's the solo now. Everyone else does their job in one take. You know, the drums are done, the bass is done, a couple of overdubs, the singing's done. But I'm sitting there like, oh, shit, man. You know, it's like, it was a lot of work, but it was enjoyable because I was pushing myself into musically places I hadn't been. I was only 18, 19, and I kind of bluffed my way through it. And if you listen to it, it sounds kind of good. You know, it sounds like I knew what I was doing, but I really didn't. I was just pushing myself.
How many tracks of guitar did you record?
Damn.
Rhythm.
On one song?
Yeah.
5, 6, 7.
So you guys wanted that real chunky, heavy, distorted, saturated sound?
Yeah, I think at one point I ended up with a semicircle of every amp that anyone had ever made. And my roadie Slouch, my dear friend, wired it all up. And it was all mic'd up. And you'd think it would be the biggest sound in the world. And we walked in the control room and it sounded so shit. It was just like, that ain't how things work. The bigger you are doesn't make it sound big. You know, you really should have had an amp about that size and turn it up.
Yeah.
And record it just once, you know. So it's a learning experience. It's very good.
3 years. So you did the first Generation X album, Generation X, Valley of the Dolls.
And then the third one, which was never completely finished, was the album with Dancing With Myself on it. So we did that, and it got to the point where I just couldn't get up in the morning and be excited anymore. So I just had to leave, you know.
I know, I hate when it's not fun anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like, oh, I'm not going to make any more money, or there was no money. We never had money. I think the most we had was $40 a week. That was it. You know, the money went somewhere else. But so it wasn't about that. It was just about, I didn't feel I could contribute anymore.
Was during the time you were in Generation X and you guys, what size venues were you guys playing?
We ended up playing pubs, even after 10 appearances on Top of the Pops. We ended up doing a pub tour, and it was just like, there was nothing there, you know. Billy was off doing his thing, and Tony was a little bit getting a little bit depressed, I think, or not in control anymore. It just, you know, it's the same old story with any band. And I just thought it was time to step out and go and do my own thing, which I did, which was called Empire. And at the time it was absolutely ignored, which is fine. But 20 years later, I found out that album was particularly in Washington DC, was hailed as a nice piece of work, and that's a thrill to me. That the music and the Gen X stuff too, that the music lives on, and the effort you put in at the time eventually becomes very worthwhile, even to yourself.
What was the community like? Was there a community of friends during that period, during the period of those first 3 albums? Were you associating with Sid or any of the people from the scene?
You bump into people, yeah. But I was telling someone earlier, there was a lot of competition between the bands, like the Clash and the Damned and the Sex Pistols and all that. But I mean, you were decent if you met someone, but there was no camaraderie because the competition was there. It was like hanging out with the enemy. You didn't want to do that. And like, for instance, Rat Scabies, the drummer from the Damned, I became friends with him 20 years later, and we still are friends, I think, Rat. And there's a history and a camaraderie now, but at the time it was like you'd kind of stick to your own camp.
Yeah, I just talked to Palm Olive from the Slits, and she was telling me it was the same way in that circle also.
Well, yeah, it's the same circle, yeah. Same circle, yeah.
So did you ever go to the sex shop or hang out with Malcolm or know Malcolm?
I actually did when I was like 14, 15. It used to be called Too Fast to Live, Too Young to Die, or Let It Rock. Even before that, I can't remember. But I used to get, because I was really into Bowie, and I used to go and get my glitter socks from there. The worst socks ever made, but they look good, But it's like walking in fucking sand, But yeah, I went there quite a lot because my nan lived right across the road on the King's Road. So I'd sort of go over there for a cup of tea and then go over there.
Did you ever hear of a band called Masters of the Backside?
No.
It was a band that Chrissie Hynde and the guys from the Damned were in together.
Oh no.
Okay. It's like the Flowers of Romance. It's one of those bands that never got off the ground. What was Billy's personality like back in those days?
Great. When he decided not to beat me up and asked me to join his band, I was like, oh great. And he used to doss around my house, and he was a normal guy, just a kid. He wasn't much older than me, but and then of course the record company want to basically take the singer out of the band so they can mold what they want, and I think that's what happened, really.
Now that was supposed to be Bill Aucoin, so you saw that already starting to happen during the time he was in Generation X, or a Generation X kind of run?
I saw it happening, and funny you mentioned Bill Aucoin, because that was the straw for me, because me and the drummer Mark Laff went to meet him because Tony and Billy wanted him to take on the management, and I just thought, what a fucking arsehole, I don't want nothing to do with that. I just imagined that it would we'd be ending up like a British Kiss, with makeup and weird shit, and something. No way, man. And funny enough, there was when they got Gen X together with other people, they did a TV show, and Billy ended up wearing stockings, and suspenders and high heels, and I was like, there you go, there it is.
So you worked on the Kiss Me Deadly album, right? You laid down guitar tracks for that?
Yeah.
Did you encounter Steve Jones or?
Never met him. Never have. Never met the guy.
Because apparently he played on guitar, some guitars on that, or solos.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
I really don't know, because I was gone,
Okay, so but you did, some of your guitar tracks are on that album, on the Kiss Me Deadly album.
They re-recorded everything, but the ideas came from me, and then they re-recorded it. Yeah.
Did you know Vivienne Westwood?
No, I never really hung out in those circles. I really didn't. I wasn't interested in being a rock star. I just wasn't, and I'm not. I'm just me.
Tell me about the songwriting process and how those songs were written.
Tony wrote the lyrics in the beginning. Billy would put the music to the lyrics, and he was a good guitarist. He had original ideas because it was kind of naive, and I would take those ideas and make them easier for me to play because I'm a lazy guitarist. Why do this when you can just do that kind of thing. But as time went on, it became more of a four-way input, and Tony stopped writing words and Billy wrote the words on the third album. I think he wrote Dancing With Myself, and so Tony took a back seat, and with that happening, we all contributed a lot more musically, like original ideas.
What were some of the bands that you listened to during the time you were in Generation X?
Certainly not punk. That wasn't an influence because I was in it. I listened to guitarists. I listened to Paul Kossoff from Free. I listened to Ritchie Blackmore, Jimi Hendrix, Bo Diddley, Wilco Johnson. I wanted to be somewhere near as competent as them. That was my wish, to be a good guitarist.
Did you do any extensive touring on the first album?
We did a lot of gigs before it, so we were really tight. And but we weren't a touring band really. I think we did 4 tours of England, a week in Japan, and a week in Paris, and that was it. The whole 3 years. Stupid, we should have been here. Why aren't we playing more places? Because I think if we had we'd have stuck together more, and we'd be more of a camaraderie thing. And looking back now, it's easy with hindsight, but if you look at what came out of that band, with Tony, with Zig Zig Sputnik, and Billy's solo stuff, my little contributions, and Mark had his band 20 Flight Rockers. If we could have stuck together, I think we could have made really good stuff, all these years later. So to me, that's the shame of the whole situation.
Billy Idol is considered an innovator because he took punk rock and he attached dance music to it. Do you believe that? Do you believe that he's an innovator?
No, I don't. I think, and I'm not being negative about it, but I think what he did is Americanize his ideals, musical ideals. I think he came to America and Americanized everything, getting Steve Stevens in, with all the whammy heavy metal stuff. Innovator, I don't. Well, maybe he is. I don't know.
Can you appreciate the Billy Idol catalog, the songs from the Billy Idol catalog?
I guess you can't help but like the hits, yeah. Rebel Yell, and yeah.
Do you hear?
I wouldn't put it on, but if it comes on, I wouldn't turn it off. It's okay, yeah.
When was the last time you talked to Billy?
I can't remember, to be honest. 30 years ago.
I had a chance to interview Billy at one time, and the guy was really genuinely nice to me.
He's got no reason to not be nice, right?
Yeah, I know. He's been blessed, pretty much.
Well, yeah, pretty much. But and he's worked hard, I assume.
Yeah.
And good luck, Great.
Do you remember how you left or who you told, hey, I'm out of here?
I left twice. I left once in May of '79, and it was kind of like, everyone was like, oh, no, really? And then I left again in December, and it was like, oh, go on then, fuck off.
Did you already have a vision of what the next thing was going to be for you?
I just wanted to write songs, my songs, and just be a good guitarist. That's all I've wanted to be. And a night like tonight is so thrilling to me, to come out and people I don't know. I don't know anyone here at all. I drove out from the desert on my own, with a guitar, and it's like, wow, I wonder what tonight's going to be like. And people are so nice. And like, oh man, your music, your guitar really influenced. That's all I've ever wanted, really. To be what my heroes were to me is all you can really hope for.
You put a band together after the demise of Generation X?
Yeah, and that we did one album which was totally ignored, and then later became like an influencer to the Washington DC emo scene. I had no idea. I was in London at the time. It's like, and someone told me, and I was like, what? Someone's actually bought that record in America? It's that kind of naivety. And, people like Henry Rollins, who, incidentally, I've just put out a vinyl album, and he did the liner notes. He's been my champion,
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, it blows me away.
What was that journey from England to Joshua Tree?
But I formed a band called Westworld, who had hits in England, and we for the first time it was success with money. And after 10 years to the day of being a professional guitarist, I felt like I'd achieved something. And we had a record contract, and that was great, and it all fell apart for some reason, which, can I explain it very shortly? The record company, we produced and made our own record. The record got round clubs and was a hit. The record company signed us and put the hit out immediately, as record companies do. We hadn't recorded an album. So while we were promoting that hit, we were trying to record the album, because without the album, you're not going to get any sales. So we were always 6 months behind and never could catch up, because we were promoting, recording, and everything we finished, they'd throw out as the next single. And eventually you become a one-hit wonder, because each single goes less in the charts and you're labeled as a one-hit wonder. You can't change that. That's just the way it was. But then, just as despair and, it's like, oh, damn, after all this work, a record company signed us, and they were an American record company. So we said, well, we need to move to America. So they moved us to Arizona. We just looked at the map and went, well, we don't want to live in LA, but that's only 6 hours away. So we moved to Cave Creek, Arizona, little town, and we spent the next 3 years being kind of naughty with quite a bit of money and nothing to do, and the usual rock and roll story. And we milked that whole thing for years, and I fell in love with the desert, just being in the desert, the space, the people. We moved back to England, and I eventually came to LA. I was a motorcycle messenger for 2 years, and that nearly killed me, literally. But I saved enough money up to be able to buy a place in Joshua Tree, and I've been there for 20 years.
Who was in Westworld?
A girl called Elizabeth Westwood, she was the singer, and a guy called Nick Burton, who was a drummer and an acoustic guitarist. You should check it out. I mean, it's rock and roll. It's old school rock and roll. What we try to do is kind of like a hip hop beat with Bo Diddley on top. So it'd be like jing, 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 and do that, and a good tune, 3-minute song. And it worked. But like I say, we could never catch ourselves up with the timing of it,
What years were you in LA for when you got signed and you guys were being bad boys?
Not in LA. I was being a good boy in LA. I was riding a motorcycle for a living.
Oh, okay.
But in Cave Creek, that was 92. Yeah, because we flew in and we left LA the day of the riots in April 92. and we got out of there quite luckily, because around the airport where all our shit was going off. And so I remember that date. 92 till 94, 5. Yeah.
What was some of the good trouble that you guys got in?
There was no good trouble at all.
Oh.
You know, it's the usual thing, but as opposed to anywhere else I'd ever been, riding a horse into a bar or riding a motorcycle into a bar, staying up for 3 days, partying for 3 years, that kind of vibe, and people walking around with guns and no police. You know, it was a small town, couldn't afford police. Everyone policed themselves. I just never experienced shit like that, and it was amazing.
Wow.
And thank God everyone got out alive, really. It was good.
So what happened to the singer?
She, funny enough, I spoke to her yesterday, and she is doing one of these 80 revival things that they do in Europe, where they have 20 people on doing a song each or 2 songs. She's finally said, you know what, I want to do this. I said, go ahead, you know. So yeah, I mean, it's good money.
Yeah.
It's kind of corny, but you know.
Yeah. I mean, everybody's doing it now.
Yeah.
ABC, you name it.
Yeah, right. I mean, I don't think there's a band that ever was that isn't these days. Everyone's on tour.
No, it's true.
And that's fine, but I wouldn't want to be part of that.
So now let's move forward to now. You have a new album that you just came out with vinyl.
Yeah. Well, what happened was, my wife bought me a lap steel guitar, I think to hang on the wall, and it was staring back at me all the time. And I thought, I should actually try and do something with this. And I spent about a year learning stuff. Everything was wrong. I didn't know, but the picks you use, I put them on backwards by mistake. And this was wrong, and the tuning was wrong. But it reminded me of discovering rock and roll for the first time, because it was naive and it was mistakes, and mistakes is what is creativity to me. And so I just stuck to it, and I started playing in church at first. I mean, on a Thursday. It wasn't proper church, but it was an hour every week, and I'd get up and play songs about death to old people, and that was nerve-wracking, you know. Here's a song called Death Song, and everyone's like, what? But I got past that, and I really enjoyed it. And the one, I'm not a singer, but I can sing, I can kind of mumble in tune. But what I realised is, if I picked out a string of notes on the guitar, like da 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 da, I could sing the harmony of that, and it would sound like a thick thing. Even though it was just epoxy acoustic and epoxy voice, it sounded like a chord, like a thick thing. And so I worked on that and put out 4 albums over the last 5 years. And then I thought, well, I need to put the cherry on top. And so I did the vinyl, which is really expensive, but I did it for me. I wanted a smash hits vinyl record, just to go, wow, I did something, you know. And I played last week, and I like going out and risking everything, you know, because you can fall flat on your face real quick. You know, string breaks. What are you going to do?
Kids?
No kids.
But you're married?
Married.
How many years?
How many years? Dogs?
No, years. The wife. The wife. How many years?
23 next week. Yeah.
Wow. 1997. 96.
That's when we met. Sorry, married 21. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you didn't want to have kids?
No. We could have, but we decided that we liked our life so much, and being selfish, I didn't want to commit to something like that. And luckily, she felt the same way, because a lot of times there's a conflict between husband and wife. You know, one of them wants to be a father, and the other one doesn't want to be a mother. luckily we both agreed, yeah, let's just get dogs, man. Dogs are so cool.
What kind of dogs do you have?
We've had many, and they've lived their whole lives happily and passed on. Right now we've got 2 dogs, 2 little bossy poos, Boston poodles, and you can't feel bad with a happy dog. You just can't. They lift you up all the time.
That's the last truth here on this earth. The dogs, that's the last truth. They love you.
Especially rescue dogs that have been maybe in a situation that's not good for them and abused. Or our first 2 dogs we got from breeders because we didn't know any better and we wanted a particular breed. But after that, we always rescued dogs or found them on the fucking road, you know, little puppies on the road, and we'd take them in and we'd have, 10, 12 years of joy both ways. And to me, I like that. The last truth.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
What do you love about Joshua Tree?
Being left alone with grace. I mean, I have friends there, but they never pop round. They always call, and that's the way of the desert. People who move there, that you've got to understand that you're there for a reason, and the reason isn't to have you knocking on the friggin' gate unannounced. Just the manners and the good neighbours and the space, the weather, the plants that can survive 20-degree weather and 115 all in the same year, and they thrive. It just amazes me.
So you found peace? I'm not sure that anyone's looking for what I found, and I'm not quite sure what it is.
I mean, yeah, it's peace and tranquility, but it's more than that. It's spiritual, and the people I love out there are spiritual people. It's not religious, but in a way it is, like rock and roll is. But it's I don't know. It's hard to describe. I couldn't live anywhere else.
What's next for you?
Going back to the desert tomorrow, after I take a swim in the Marriott Hotel.
What do you think of the music business now?
I probably shouldn't comment on it because I don't check things out.
Okay.
I critically listen to myself a lot, recording, and try and do my best. There's a few things that get through, mainly fucking adverts, commercials on TV. They get in your head, and it's like, that's what I need to do. I need to get a commercial selling soap, and it just gets in someone's head and they buy the record.
Well,
that seems to be the music business right now.
It is. Well, there are Generation X songs that have been in commercials.
Yeah.
Do you prosper from those?
No, because my name wasn't really put on there as a writer, even though I could dispute that, yeah. But, it's the way it is. So half the band are millionaires and the other half are me and the drummer.
But you have no regrets. You're happy where you're at.
I used to have regrets, but the best thing to do with regrets is get over them. Otherwise it eats away.
Mm-hmm.
And that does no one no good. Because the people who got away with it couldn't give a damn. And you shouldn't give a damn either, Just get on. Make some good music that hopefully people like. And be a nice person. That means a lot.
The Blairing Out Show.